Tell you what, if it's not the wind and the shitty light, it's the damn trains around here. God. What the hell's going on out there? There's like a train going by and a plane flying overhead. Someone's yelling out there. I gotta move. Hi Grauwelt fans, and welcome to another episode of the Grauvlog, where I'm documenting my progress on writing the second Grauwelt novel. Today I wanted to talk to you about writing action scenes, how to make action scenes really interesting and gripping for a reader. Right now, in writing the second Grauwelt novel, I just got finished, right before recording this video, writing an action sequence. And that action sequence was fairly short. I'll describe it in more detail here shortly. But it was only maybe 10 or 12 paragraphs long. And for me, that's really the key of writing a good action sequence, is you have to be brief. Especially when an action scene involves a lot of characters and a lot of choreography, you know, they're moving around, they're doing a lot of actions. It's really easy for a reader to get bored really quick. And for me, action sequences are so important. I'm not by nature a violent person, but I do think that violence can really drive home a certain point if the author wants to make a point, or give the reader something to look forward to. I mean, to me, you know, these novels are a battle of ideas, and those ideas get fought out in a physical manifestation. So while it is interesting to see a really cool action sequence, at the same time there's so much subtext as to the ideas that these different sides have. And I want to use always action sequences really sparingly. If you've read The Sword and Its Servant, you know, there are maybe a dozen action sequences, and they come, you know, like lightning. It's very quick, very dirty, very gruesome, and then it's over. And then, you know, when the dust settles, then the characters, you know, you get to see who they are. You know, they feel the remorse, or they feel empowered by what they've done, depending on who they are. And I think if action sequences are too long and too often, they start to lose their magic. Just like with anything else, the more often we see it, the more desensitized we get to it, and it kind of loses its specialness. So in writing an action scene, for me, I look at it in 4 different stages, and I try to break them down and make sure that each one of these stages is met before I would consider the scene complete. The first stage is escalation. Now this is kind of what happens before the action scene breaks out. Things need to escalate, and there needs to be a reason as to why the characters in this scene are resorting to violence. Any number of things can trigger an escalation. Just some common ones off the fly would be like an insult. A character insults another, and he gets angry and raises his fist. It could be the culmination of feelings that were developed in earlier parts of the story, and now they're just coming to a head. They're coming to a climax, and they're going to finally clash. It's kind of like a violent release. So an escalation doesn't necessarily have to happen in that same scene or in that same chapter. It could have been built up over time, or it's just a really quick, violent release, like you made fun of me and now I'm going to punch you in the face. And the second part of that is what I call the tipping point. I mean, in escalation, you can escalate forever and never reach the tipping point. So, you know, maybe you have a protagonist and an antagonist that are competitive against each other. They're always insulting each other. They're always outdoing each other, trying to outmaneuver each other. But until they reach what I call the tipping point, they'll never actually fight each other. They'll never swing a fist. They'll never draw their sword. They'll never, you know, fire a shot until they reach that. And the tipping point can really be any trigger. Again, it could be, you know, this insult in particular is one step too far, and the character reacts violently to that. It could be an external factor that triggers the tipping point. It could be, you know, 2 nations are kind of at a standstill against each other. There's like an arms race, and the tipping point could be, you know, a conspiracy by one side against the other to make it look like that neighboring kingdom is attacking them, or an actual invasion could be the tipping point, or maybe the assassination of an important leader. So in the first stage, the escalation, again, can just last and last and last, but there has to be like a trigger. There has to be, you know, the dynamite is finally lit. There has to be an event or a set of circumstances that kind of lights everything up. The third stage is definitely the most fun, and that's what I call the release. The escalation has been built up, the trigger is finally ignited, and the release is the actual act of violence itself, whatever the action scene is going to contain, whatever the fight is going to be about, that's in the release stage. And the really important thing, again, here is to be really brief. When I write an action scene, I try to make it as brief as possible. I've written action scenes that are an entire chapter long, 10, 15 pages, and I always go back and try to find how can I cut this down even further and give the reader just the essentials. If a fight scene is too detailed, the author gives you too much and tells you exactly how everyone's hands are moving, where they're standing, not even to mention what they're thinking or saying, it's too hard for a reader to map that all out in their minds. So you just need to give them the bare essentials, describe quick sword pumps and sidesteps and stabs and spurts of blood, and just make it kind of choppy, just real quick succession. And then again, as I said before, your reader's imagination will fill in the blanks. They don't need to know, you don't need to write out a map of where everything is and how everything looks. Just give them the basic fluid movements and their imagination will do the work for you. And the fourth and final stage for me in writing an action sequence is the aftermath. So after the release of violence, there's typically going to be one side or another who will pause and think, what's been done here? Because to me, the use of violence, no matter how villainous a character is never a black and white thing. I mean, even to the deepest, darkest, most evil character at times, they should be taken aback to some degree, or at least be reserved about always using violence, if for no other reason than self-preservation. Because if you're always violent, even towards, your enemies, you can probably only expect violence in return. So even the most cunning, evil, bloodthirsty villain will at times, question whether violence is the answer to solve their problems, if for no other reason than I don't want to trigger an even bigger chain of events that's going to unleash violence against me. So without giving too much away about any one particular part of the second Grauwelt book, the action scene I just got finished and how I applied these four things involves Ainsa, Klein, and finding a group of Loa that are kind of have like a camp where they're ringed around a campfire, drinking, telling jokes, eating, that sort of thing. And so the story thus far, if you've read the first one, The Sword and Its Servant, the escalation is continual. She's always in a fight between whether I should kill my enemies or run away. They obviously want to kill me. I'm still indecisive about what I'm going to do about them. So the escalation's been built up over the entire story. The tipping point in this particular case is what Ainsa witnesses the Loa doing to some fellow human survivors. I won't give away exactly what it is. I want to say that as a surprise. But when she sees these barbarous acts, she's driven over the edge once again. Klein helps push her into acting violently where maybe she shouldn't or wouldn't have on her own. And the release is very, very quick. Like I said, about 10 paragraphs. Some paragraphs, if you've read my writing, are only a single sentence or at times a single word to kind of drive the point home. So it's not very long. With Klein's help, Ainsa's movements are very fluid, very easy. If you've read the first one, she mows down the first few very quickly. The action scene kind of just releases itself. It's almost like, pardon my language, like an orgy, an orgasm of violence that just comes suddenly, and none of the characters expect this. The Loa certainly don't expect this because it's a surprise to them. It's an ambush, and to Ainsa, the levels to which she's driven, the violent acts which she commits with Klein's help, to her is a surprise. So it's almost like unintentional. It just blurts out all of a sudden. And then, she has a second afterwards to pause in the aftermath stage, and while she's holding one remaining survivor at sword point and thinks, like, should I be doing this? Are these, Loa really guilty of what I think that they are? So that's kind of my whole take on the thing. like with movies, I'm not a big fan of action movies where it's just nonstop, shooting and moving and violence. It's not that I have anything against that sort of thing, but it becomes the whole point of a story like that is just the violence itself, just the action itself. There's very little subtext, and you just get tired of it. It's just there's not that much going on. I know a lot of people like that, but I like to see it really sparingly, so that every time that there is an outbreak of violence, there's a really deep purpose to it. You start to think like this isn't just characters acting in a physical way. They're driven by an inner desire of some sort. That about wraps it up for this episode of the Grauvlog. As always, I want to invite all of you to take a look at the Grauwelt website. There's always a companion article that I write with each one of these Grauvlogs. I'll put the link in the video description and also the video itself. Each one of these companion posts kind of goes into more depth about these concepts. Certain things are better seen visually and heard spoken, and some others, for kind of deeper consideration, I think seeing it in text and getting a little bit of a different viewpoint on that is beneficial. So I would definitely encourage all of you guys to check out the companion post for this Grauvlog. I'm also always taking your questions in the comments section of these videos, and also you can email me directly at victor.salinas@grauwelt.com. I'm trying to put together a Q&A sort of video coming up. I have a couple of questions from you guys I want to get maybe 10 or 15 to do one video of, and I'll answer any questions you have about writing, creativity, the Grauwelt books, me personally, if you care to know anything about that. And I just real quick get in the habit of answering everyone's questions in the email and not saving the questions for the video that I want to use them in. I just get really excited when I get emails from you guys just wanting anything. I just get so excited about you guys asking me anything at all. It's just really great. Rate and share this video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to the Grauwelt channel. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.